So hi everybody and welcome to another Wisdom Hub astrology special. I am going to be talking to the wonderful Pam Gregory again today about the upcoming astrology of this week. It's the autumn equinox on Wednesday the 22nd here in the UK in the evening, and then we have immediately the day before that a very powerful Pisces full moon which is happening very early here in Britain on the morning of the 21st. So we're going to be doing one of our specials where we get into the astrology of the equinox and how that possibly could play out energetically over the next, 3 to 6 months. These past solstices and equinoxes have been very, very powerful, very life-changing, very transformative. And I think it's really important to feel into the flow of the energy of what's coming up. So I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Pam Gregory. So lovely to be talking to you again, Pam.
Wonderful, David. A real joy and a pleasure to be with you again. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Great.
Likewise. Very blessed. So what have we got coming up? I know we've had a very, very powerful year, right? You know, we've been tracking the astrology for a while and doing these talks, and also the full moons and the new moons have been epic. You know, it seems like living from a moon to a moon is the way to go right now. But talk us through the precursor, the prelude to the equinox, and then what's going to happen from there on in.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I was at the beginning of this year looking at all the lunations, the new moons, the full moons, the eclipses, I thought, wow, every one is just packing a punch. They're all very powerful. And, you know, it's interesting you say it's been very powerful already this year. I think we ain't seen nothing yet. We are just entering the probably one of the most, at the 3D level, the most intense 6 months we've ever experienced in our lives.
Wow, okay.
It's going to be fast. It's going to be full on. There are going to be lots of changes, and we're not going to be able to fail to notice those. So,
if you haven't already noticed, there's a lot going on in the world right now, huh?
I think we can all feel the intensity. All of us can. But it's very interesting, David. We were talking just before you started the recording. There's such a sense, and I was saying that way back at the end of 2017, I started to talk about the fork in the road, and this sense I had of an incredible divergence in belief systems, in frequency, in expectations for your life, etc. And I think I said it in one or two videos that it's almost like two trains leaving a station, heading on different tracks. And initially, there's still an opportunity to jump track, to jump from one train to another. But now the trains are moving so quickly and in very, very different directions, it becomes harder to do that. And that's not to say it's ever impossible, but there's a very clear diversification, I think it's fair to say. Now that may ultimately, connect up again in future, but for now there is a very clear fork in the road, and that's just become more and more distinct, I think, since I started to talk about it at the end of 2017. So we have this Pisces full moon coming up on the 20th, which is next Tuesday. Yes, and it's just a little before 1 a.m. in the morning, actually 21st for the UK, and it is just packed with Tsquares.
Great.
So Tsquares are hard aspect squares and oppositions that make things happen. They bring action, and so we are going to notice this big time. I think something I've observed over the last few lunations is so often there was a sense of ending and beginning. There were conjunctions that were out of sign between a planet right at the end of one sign and a planet right next to it, but at the beginning of the next sign. It's kind of endings, beginnings, ending. And here with this full moon in Pisces, it's almost at the very last degree of the zodiac. It's 28:14. It's almost at 29 degrees. And that is the very final degree of the zodiac. So again, we have this sense of an ending, but where there's an ending, it creates a vacuum. There has to be a new beginning. Right. And we have the energy is so complex here, but we have the moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So this is beautiful. It's esoteric. It's altered states. It's creative. It can take us to states of peace and bliss. And they are both opposing the Sun and Mars. Mars is actually just in early Libra. So it's out of sign opposition, out of sign conjunction with the Sun. So there's so much complexity even in that, because Virgo energy is very much mental energy. It's ruled by Mercury. So it tends to be very much in the head. It's very good for organizing and planning and logic and analysis and creating order out of chaos, that kind of, but it's very much a mental function. Whereas really this Pisces full moon is encouraging us to get out of the head and into the feeling, out of the specifics, because Virgo is so precise. Dot the I's, cross the T's, nail it, be absolutely specific and correct on the facts. But actually the moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces is just get into the body and be in bliss. Just sit on the earth, just watch a bird, just be blissed out is what that Neptune conjunct the moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces is about. So get out of the head into the feeling is very strong. But there's a lot happening here, because also the Sun conjunct Mars there. Mars isn't in an odd placement in Libra because it's opposite to its sign of rulership, which is Mars rules Aries. So it's a slightly uncomfortable place there, because Mars always wants to act, it wants to do. And the way it operates in Libra really is to do for others, to act for others. Libra is one of the two signs to do with the law, scales of justice. Libra, the other sign connected with the law, is Sagittarius, to do with the truth. So here we have a strong sense of, I am fighting for others, I'm fighting for justice, I'm fighting for truth. That is going to get stronger through October when we really move a lot of planets, personal planets, into Libra. I've been talking about this for months. I think there are hundreds of legal cases all over the world. I think we're going to start to see some of them come to the fore much more in October, when we've got that very strong Libra energy. So anyway, so potentially this can be that moon conjunct Neptune at one level can just be, I'm confused, I don't know, where to go, what to believe. There's an awkward aspect also between Mercury and Neptune, a quincunx. So, I'm just misinformation, disinformation. Or it can be, I don't care about the information. I'm just going to find my bliss.
Nice.
I'm just going to hug a tree and it'll be fine. And actually, we're now understanding that our reality is so much more fluid than we ever imagined. If this is our mastery, isn't it, Davyd? If we can get to those states of bliss, we become a magician.
Yes.
With the energy, we can just change stuff, and stuff can evaporate that's problematic. That's our mastery. So I think the full moon in Pisces, the moon conjunct Neptune, has so much promise and so much magic in it. It's quite esoteric. Emotions are going to be running very high. What are they going to be running high about? Well, Virgo Pisces is the health axis. Pretty clear and easy to see what that's going to be about. Mm-hmm. But we've also got a beautiful, exact, within a minute, trine between Jupiter and Mercury. This is envisaging bigger horizons, bigger future visions. Jupiter is in Aquarius. They're connected with freedom, human rights, space, truth. Just visionary. It's very, very future oriented. So that's beautiful. And yet there's some real gritty on the street stuff. That long running square between Eris and Pluto, which is going to be exact for its fifth and final time on the 9th of October, is actually a T-square with Mercury. So Mercury at 23 of Libra, again, think of the law, is opposing Eris at 24 of Aries, and they're both squaring Pluto at 24 of Capricorn. So this is angry words about truth, angry words about legalities, people taking to the street. But Eris is the female awakener. I think we are going to start to see over the next few months a surge of awakening amongst people. And that's really going to shift the momentum of events as well. And Eris is about the shift of the ages. This is about a paradigm shift as well. And particularly when she's in hard aspect to the outer planets as she is here, this to me becomes very exciting indeed. We are in a paradigm shift. There's no doubt about it. We are in a shift of the ages. And so just to finish off before Davyd, you chime in, we've also got an opposition here between Venus and Uranus. Venus is at 11 of Scorpio. Uranus is at 14 of Taurus. Now, a few days ago, Venus was square to Saturn. So any unsatisfactory relationship where there were limitations or it felt a bit stale or deadening or whatever, you might have felt a bit, not sure this is fully satisfactory anymore. By the time Venus comes to oppose Uranus at this full moon, and within a couple of days it opposes it exactly, there's just a feeling of breakaway. With a current relationship that isn't working well, there's a feeling of, no, I've got to be free. I've got to be independent. I've got to go and do my own thing. Or if you're not in a relationship, it can be sudden, out of the blue beginning of one. You know, out of the blue, she could be younger, foreign, bohemian, different background to you, bang, out of the blue. So that's very interesting on the relationship level. Venus always has the generalized meaning of wealth and currencies, particularly on that Scorpio-Taurus axis, which is all about wealth and money. So we could start to see some very interesting swings in markets, in currencies. That will become stronger in October, I think. So, and a whole ton more, but you know, that's for starters, really.
Yeah, nothing's simple anymore, is it? There's no one sort of simple motif for any of these big trends. They all seem to happen at once with multiple aspects. And wow, thank you for giving us I mean, I know you've talked more about the full moon on your own show, so don't necessarily need to go into that in so much detail, but a few things have jumped out from what you've just said, and I love the motif of the parting railway tracks, all sort of going different directions. And you know, with that analogy, of course, you can still jump across the trains while they're close to each other, but the further they go apart, the less likely you're going to make that leap, I guess. And with this sort of Virgo Pisces axis, what I see is the order and the chaos potential. Do we choose the order option, which perhaps is more expansive, more free, more higher mind, or do we choose what perhaps seems more like the chaotic option right now, which is the third dimensional rollout of a different type of agenda, or a different type of regime change, so to speak. And so I feel that a large part of this year has been about individual choice. Sometimes having to accept that choices, you can have two choices, but they're not either necessarily pleasant in the way that humans might think of something being pleasant. But what is remarkable is sometimes when you face down difficult choices and step into a space of confronting those choices and making a clear commitment to what your truth is, it's amazing how that can then expand into something that you never expected. And I kind of feel that this is where we're at now as a society, is at what point do I make the change? Do I release myself from a relationship? And it could even be a relationship with the wider world and the society that you live in. Are you making your own personal life regime change? You know, how is that happening? Is it happening in the external world? And if it is it being fed or fueled by your inner world change? You know, I think this inner so within, so without is really important right now, because you know, it seems to me that we are being forced, literally, with, you know, being locked down and all of the other things, to go further and further inwards. But what we do when we find that space is how clean we are, or maybe how unclean we are. How much, you know, detoxing, cleansing do we have to do? How much stuff are we still carrying that's actually blocking our ability to connect to these incredible rays that you've been talking about, you know, the photon rays, and just how open is our crown chakra to receive these energies? How contaminated is it? How polluted is it? How possibly programmed is it? And the more that we kind of go inwards, the more we can start to see how these effects are happening to our energy field, and the more that we can then start to work on releasing those and finding out what the origins of those blockages, or how those blockages may be related to our traumas. So I feel this is all the choice. Do we continue to put our energy into the outside world and believe that we can force change just through interacting with the external world, or do we perhaps make a more radical change to our life and say, let me go inwards and make the radical changes there, and then outwardly express that in how I see the world around me in a different way? And I kind of think that this is the choice that we've all got right now, is can we step up and make those difficult choices to radically change our interaction, our interface with ourselves and the world around us? And if we can, what are we going to do with that? You know, are we going to go for expressing more justice, more peace, more equality? Are we going to worry about what's happening to other parts of society? Should we be worrying? You know, these are all questions that we have to ask ourselves. And if we are worrying about them, what can I do to assist? What is my role in all of this? Or am I here for something different? And I think that the more that we go in, the more that we can find out this information. We're not going to find out who we truly are by looking on the news. It's not going to tell us what our soul's journey is. The only way we can find that out is by going inwards and asking various other aspects of ourselves, hey, what's going on for me right now? Why am I here? So, you know, these T-squares can be troublesome, right? But at the same time, like you say, they create tension, which makes us confront stuff. And humans generally don't like confrontation in many different ways, and we certainly don't like to confront our own stuff. I mean, I certainly haven't in the past, but the more that I've tackled it, particularly this year, the more I can see instant release. I'm like, wow, all that's being asked of us from upstairs is just to step up and acknowledge. And if we do and we go into it, stuff can be released quickly. And when that happens, it creates more space for something different, a different kind of impulse. So that's just kind of, you know, what's coming to me out of this full moon. But it seems to me that it's also part of an ongoing story arc that's been going on most of this year and since the beginning of last year. It's like, where is your head at right now? How do you interface with the world around you? You know, are you reliant on the parents, the system to guide you at every hand's turn and support you? Or are you going to step away and stop being a teenager and step up into being an adult yourself and say, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for it all. I don't need anybody else's help. I can do this myself. And I think that that's the gig. And the more you investigate that, the more you realize you're actually quite dependent on a lot of other people, including the system, it seems. And, you know, and so then how do we start to think about something different? And I think that that's where the really creative high notes of the astrology are at the moment. And, you know, there are many transits that support that. So that's kind of, I feel, the two train tracks, you know, where are they going? Which one are you on? Which one do you want to be on? And if you feel like you want to be on a certain one, but you're not there yet, then ask yourself why. Well, why am I feeling maybe confused or a little bit unsure about things? Where am I getting my information from? Am I taking my information from an external source? Or am I going inwards and asking myself what's going on for me, you know? So, yeah, you can see that Virgo mental energy, which gets caught up in there, or you can see the sort of the more Piscean energy, which is a bit more collective. How do I fit into all of this? What's my role? What am I here to do? I think
that's really well said, Davyd, really well said. And I think the choices this year, I've said this in some of my videos, have been absolutely life-changing.
Yes.
I really do. And you know, we're going through a process of initiation, I feel. And all through our lives, you know, all of us in the world have lived in a system where it has been top-down authority figures, whether it's a parent, whether it's your teacher at school, whether it's the government or the police or whatever. They've all been external authority figures. And that is going through a whole catharsis, really. And yes, we've always known that the inner produces the outer, whatever your inner state, your inner frequency produces your outer, but boy, is that clear right now. Super crystal clear. And it's becoming clearer and faster. This attraction of the frequency match, I think, is getting faster and clearer. And that beautiful exact trine between Jupiter and Mercury at this full moon feels so expansive. You know, feels so expansive. And what's exciting at the moment, I was just having this conversation with somebody this morning, what's so exciting, and I know you're a dowser too, and you might look at this yourself afterwards, Davyd, but I've been finding with my dowsing, because I've been kind of, this year particularly, I've been looking at, you know, what's the maximum frequency for humanity in hertz of embodied frequency. And it's just been getting kind of higher and higher. And then literally it kind of was off the chart. I didn't have a calibration for it. And I heard a channeling from Zachariah, Zach, our dear friend, through the very gifted Janet Treloar this morning, and being asked questions by Hazel Newton, and some wonderful questions. And Zach was actually saying the increase in frequency for the universe is off the charts. And that's physically, you know, what I've been seeing with I've just lost calibrations. And for many people, they are just going in leaps and bounds, etc. So, you know, it's very interesting with the astrology, where we're seeing it play out at multiple levels, which of course it always has, but the divergence is greater now. I think that's because in our lives up to now, we've been more bunched together in one main collective, but now that is very different, you know, and we're taking our inner authority. Our mastery has come this year and will continue to come in looking inwards. You're spot on, Davyd, with what the only point of focus is my state of being. The only point of focus is my frequency. If I crack that and get that right, everything in my life cascades from that. Everything.
Right. And if you think about it, it's logical too, right? If you're in a state of confusion or disorientation in your inner space, then there's no real chance that your outer space is going to be a nice, calm, orderly place. It doesn't, in my experience, it doesn't really seem to work like that. So I totally concur. And, you know, the other thing that I didn't pick up on was this frequency. I mean, that's something that you've given us all over the last year, which I've really worked with. And I can see now that if we just kind of reduce things down to archetypal frequencies, I can feel the frequency of this, or I can feel the frequency of that. Does it resonate with me? Does it make me feel good? Does it make me feel sick? Does it make me feel a bit weird? You know, whatever it is. So you can actually start to, if you get clear in your field, you can really start to tell the frequencies that are actually external to you when they enter your field. But you have to know what your frequency is. You have to know what you are first. And I totally concur with you. I love the idea of the inner authority. You know, we should be our own inner authority, and you know, if we aren't doing that, then how can we start to do that? And why are we perhaps looking always externally to be our authority figures? It feels like we're kind of abdicating personal responsibility because we maybe are afraid, or maybe not sure, or maybe don't have the skill set. You know, there are many different reasons why, but I feel that this whole process is about reclaiming our inner authority for ourselves, so that then we can really move into that Aquarian space of being individualized people, completely secure in our sovereignty, but also part of a collective of people who are literally doing the same thing.
Yeah, I would totally agree. The last 21 months have been a lot about discovering your truth, discovering your sovereignty, and discovering your own autonomy.
Yes, I like
and saying, you know, I know my rules, that my body, my life will, but you know, this is very interesting because I started to talk about Ixion in the last video, and Ixion at its highest level is about, I create my own rules to live by. I create my own laws to live by. I live in my own way, and I will find my own state of bliss.
I mean, on the one hand, that sounds kind of chaotic, right? If everybody was to create their own laws and their own systems and went about doing that, we could live in a madhouse. However, I suspect that out of that chaos, eventually a bunch of people start to go, well, hey, we've got a pretty similar set of ideas here. Let's use that as a foundation for a community or society that works. And you fine tune everything out of that place. But you have to come together in agreement with a bunch of people that you literally resonate with at the same frequency. Otherwise, you're going to go back to all of the same problems that beset many communities of the past, where you've got this total discordance.
Yeah. And you know, I've talked in the past about finding your family of frequency, because once you find your family of frequency, then everything flows and it's easy. So we're bunching together already, as you know, Davyd, and you know many people who are doing this in communities, in hubs. We're forming a grid of light across the earth. We're in networks. It's starting to happen now, despite what's happening on the news. People are saying, you know what, I'm going to create my own life in a very different way, and off they go. And that has such a completely different reality to what we're seeing on. So, you know, I've always said, first step, turn off the news. That's the first, you know, just turn off the news. Just don't have somebody else's narrative or reality imposed on you. You create what you want. And even if it's just a thought of, I want to be free, I want to be joyful, I want to be peaceful, I want to live in nature, even if it's that simple that you can't see anything concrete or in detail, even that will attract the people, the circumstances, the synchronicities to produce a wonderful reality for you. And this is, you know, it's all about our mastery, isn't it? It's all about our mastery.
Totally. And I love the idea of the sort of the mantra of follow your joy. What makes you happy? What makes you feel joyful? What makes you feel in love with something? What makes you feel empowered to do something? You know, all of these things. And I think if you follow your joy and you follow your heart, you can't really go too wrong, you know. And if you start to feel like you're following your heart, but it doesn't sit very well in your body for some reason, then ask yourself, why? Have I been manipulated or tricked here into believing that I want this when actually I don't, and my body's telling me that I don't want it? You know, it's a bit like having that extra chocolate eclair, you know. You feel like you want it, but then afterwards your body's told you shouldn't really have had it. You know, so that kind of thing. And I think that that's where the discipline and the sort of really sort of knowing who you are. I mean, you know, that's the whole, you know thyself. There really is nothing more important, because once you know yourself, you can engage with the rest of the world from a place of your own truth, whatever that might be. And we're all incredibly unique, amazing, beautiful people, beings even, that have so many gifts to share. And I think really for me, a large part of what is coming in the new earth is the ability to see other people in their full glory and their full power, and meet them in an equal and opposite kind of way where we can start to co-create together.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I really agree with that, Davyd. And I think we are going to have a stronger sense of our own sovereignty, autonomy, and mastery than we've ever had in our lives. That's what, in a way, the last 21 months has been teaching us, hasn't it? I mean,
I would agree.
super, super clear.
So we've got that full moon, and then we roll straight into the third fire festival of the year, the autumn equinox. And this will, I guess, herald the onset of the winter, but also the motif of what's going to take us up to the winter solstice, which I think we've been talking about before. Looks pretty epic, pretty powerful, pretty epoch defining. And so I guess this is the final piece of prep. What's going to lead us into that moment in your mind?
Yeah, because I always say solstices and equinoxes are like striking a tuning fork for the following 3 months. It's like a background tone, if you like. And what a background tone this is. So this is happening on the 22nd. It's happening in the UK at 8:20 in the evening. This is when the sun enters Libra. So this is the beginning of our Libran energy. And again, here we have the sun conjunct Mars, both in Libra now. So that's, again, bringing legal things into the picture. Now, we've got one of the dominant aspects in this chart is an incredibly strong T-square between, we have Mercury, 24 of Libra, opposing Eris at 24 of Aries. So that's an exact degree opposition. The moon is at 21 of Aries, conjunct Eris, and they are both squaring Pluto at 24 of Capricorn. So that's the T-square. Now, the moon in mundane astrology is the people. Aries is a sign of the warrior, the fighter, and it's conjunct Eris, who is really the kind of street fighter. You know, she's the sister of Mars. She's the warrior who gets up and says, no, I will not be ignored. There's not one single person that must be excluded from this social vision. Not one, nobody marginalized, nobody on the periphery. Everybody as a human being has to be included, because that's what happened to Eris. You know the myth when she was the only goddess not invited to the wedding, and she turned up anyway and created mayhem. So she's pretty feisty. So this, to me, this is so much emotional intensity in that T-square. Angry words, angry people running up against that Pluto in Capricorn. So, yes, I see a lot of crunch, if you like. This is really emphasizing that long-running Eris-Pluto square, which, as I say, is coming to its final fifth exact square on October the 9th. October, you know, October is going to be the setup for 2022. It's so pivotal. It's so pivotal. But this has just great emotional intensity about it. And so whatever happens here with people wanting the truth, wanting equality, wanting justice, we're going to see a lot more shout, a lot more anger, potentially at that 3D level, a lot more on the streets to rattle that Pluto in Capricorn. And anyway, if you just take Pluto in Capricorn on its own, its purpose is to excavate corruption from top-down structures, governments, corporations, institutions. So in a sense, all these hard aspects to that Pluto are in a sense helping that excavation of corruption.
But it kind of sounds like a street brawl, huh? You got Mars and Aries and Eris all kind of squaring off of each other, and it sounds like a right old dust-up, as we would say. Potentially
it is. It's really strong. But also, and I don't often mention her because she's so slow and, you know, she doesn't move quickly at all, very long orbit. But we mustn't forget, you know, one of the legs of this T-square, which is Homer, and I'm probably still pronouncing that incorrectly, who is yet another symbol of New Earth. This is close to your heart, Davyd, because she's very much shamanic energy, instinctive, direct connection with nature, understands nature totally, can produce food from nothing. She's magical. She's regenerative energy. She's creative energy. So as the collapse starts to, or continues beginning with the old system, she's saying, yeah, but look at these new shoots. Look at this new earth. Look at what we're creating. Grassroots up. I mean, she is a beauty. She could just birth babies from all over her body. It doesn't have to be the normal place. You know, she's she's like the Empress in the tarot.
Right.
It's endless abundance, endless fertility. It's really beautiful, but it takes us deeply into a connection with nature, which I think we've long forgotten.
Right. And where is she, sorry, again, in the...
She's at 27 of Libra. So Mercury is actually conjunct her, the Moon and Eris are opposing her, and Pluto is squaring her. So this is kind of death rebirth, that T-square too. So you can live it at the death level, or you can live it at the rebirth level. Which end of this T-square are you at?
Do you see that as the energy of Libra bringing that forth then in the position of Homera at the moment, or how do you see that positioning? Because it's kind of interesting, the sort of the onset of the shamanic magic world is really the place of creation in many ways. It depends how your belief systems and framework, but we can see that magic is needed to create a new earth. We need to kind of move into a place of thinking differently, from a different place, not thinking from a three-dimensional mind, but thinking from a higher mind, and then manifesting down from the dream space, rather than trying to scrabble around in the 3D world, trying to make things happen here without any kind of forethought gone to it. That to me is really a large waste of energy. Take time, go into your dream space, into your shamanic space, and dream in what you want for yourself with that beautiful, joyful energy, and then how to bring it down into the three-dimensional world with your action, with your energy, with that Mars energy, how to make it happen. And I think if we take more time and really sit with that with ourselves, we might be quite surprised at how much magic we all have in us already. The whole world around us is created with magic. That's magic is just the manifestation of an imaginative idea, really. And everything in the world around us that's been constructed with humans is made of magic. So I feel that the prevalence and the understanding of magic is something that's coming very much into our world in a much more multi-dimensional way. I see a lot more people like yourself who are shifting into a place of really understanding how to work with manifestation energy. So I'm just kind of curious, from your point of view, how do you see that positioning in Libra and the rest of the square, and how do you sort of feel that energy fits with the sort of forwards motion?
Well, I think, Libra is about balance, it's about equality, but it's ruled by Venus, which is love. Love is our currency. Love is our currency going forwards. Depending on which, train you're on, love is the currency that defines everything, because that's the highest frequency. Everything falls from that. If you can meet everybody with love, not with judgment or division, if you can meet everybody with love, life starts to flow much more beautifully, because everybody is a magical multidimensional being. It's just we have different levels of awareness of it. Exactly. But you are absolutely, I'm totally 100% with you, Davyd, that the creation happens in the ethers. It happens in the magic zone, and then it just cascades down from that. And that's another part of our mastery that we're learning, because this is fifth dimension and beyond. What can we create by just focus, intention, stepping into that new energetic hologram, and bingo, you meet the right people, you go to the right places, it all happens in magical synchronicity. And I've seen so many miracles in my life. I don't doubt that for a second, but the miracles I've seen have all started when people operated from that magic zone, 5D, 6D beyond, and then it collapsed into matter. And I don't know if you heard my last video, but I'm getting very interested, getting very interested in plasma.
Yes, you were talking about that.
Plasma is the kind of pre-state of this electromagnetically charged energy, which comes before matter, and it forms fractals and geometric patterns. Some people can see it. They actually can see plasma. And when we're very coherent in our energy as human beings, people can see that the plasma around them becomes very coherent. But if we're confused and scattered and jumbled, it's very incoherent. So that is the energy, the pre-energy, if you like, the pre-matter blueprint or template with which we are creating our experiences and our reality. And that becomes much more malleable to work with. It isn't even Play-Doh, it's pre-Play-Doh, if you know what I mean. It's pre-matter. So I think that helped me and other people think, well, wow, that's a magical, fast-changing substance that I can change simply with my thinking.
Yes.
My thinking, my emotion, I can change the patterns that the plasma is creating around me before the reality manifests.
Yes. Amazing. It totally makes sense to me, the idea of manifestation with a sort of a substance like plasma into a form that you can then perhaps, work with. in an etheric form, but then visualize and bring down into the reality. And let's just say you want to create a community, you know, envisage that community, but think it through in all of its detail, rather than having some sort of wishy-hopey, thinky, dreamy thing about a community that's kind of a little bit old paradigm based and maybe a little bit stuck in the communities of the 60s or whatever, which probably were a lot of fun, but also had their own issues. Maybe we just need to rip up the rule book on a lot of things and say, hey, that's how we did it before, but let's try something completely different. Let's step outside of ourselves and try a different type of thought process, you know. So, I mean, I like what you were saying about the magic as well. Is our magic fueled with love, or is it fueled with shadow? And, you know, I think, again, we have the choices. What kind of world do we want to create and live in? Do we want to live in a world powered by love and, you know, joyful feelings, or do we want to live in a world powered by shadow, manipulative feelings and energies? And again, the choice is entirely ours. You know, I had a very interesting dialogue some time back with some aspects of myself, you know, kind of in my higher self, and he sort of said to me, you do realise, David, that everything that's going on for you is you doing it to you, don't you? I'm like, come on, that can't be right. That guy who's doing that to me, that's him that's doing that. And I went for all of this, and my higher self just kept breaking down. No, yeah, but it might seem like that, but it really is you allowing that to happen. Do you want to continue like in that track? I'm like, well, no, because it's causing me a lot of grief. You know, and so then I'm like, well, then why am I still doing it? Why am I inflicting this pain through this habitual process? And so anyway, the point being that it gave me the sort of the motif to start examining many things like that, and just, you know, having these sort of internal conversations with some other aspect of myself. It's quite blunt sometimes. It's just like, well, look, it's just you doing it to you. It all is, all of it. So if you don't like it, change it.
I mean, that's beautiful. And some very esoteric teachers would say, there is only you in the universe.
Right.
Playing out your movie. There is no one else. And that's really hard to get your head around, because, you know, you feel very tangible and real as another human being. But the esoteric teachers would say that. And I wrote about this, I think, in my first book, but I remember a time about 16 years ago. It was a very difficult time. And, you know, I was feeling at the time a lot of difficult energy. And I moved to a new house, and all of the workmen that came in to fix things were angry. You know, the boiler man, I think he'd been in prison for GBH, you know, the guy who fixed the washing machine, he was angry, and I couldn't wait to get him out of the house. My car broke down, you know, the mechanic was in a filthy mood. And eventually I said, I am doing this. I am attracting this. And it was a great lesson for me, because unless I change my inner state, this is just going to keep on trucking. I'm going to get more and more angry people into my life. And once I clocked that and I changed the inner state, then I got some really nice workmen to help me. And all the white goods stopped breaking down as well. So, you know, everything in our reality is a reflection of us and our energy state. I mean, sometimes we get a curveball from Uranus, and that's, you know, had to surprise you. It was getting a little too easy and comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I can see now why we have Uranus, because you can have the best laid plans, and humans love to make plans, right? But maybe they're plans that are based on an old way of doing things that really aren't allowing an awful lot of growth. And Uranus is just like, yeah, that's kind of been cool up until now, but hey, we're just going to blow that apart and try doing something different, and we're going to do it in such a way you don't really have any choice but to go along with it. And I'm sorry if it kind of seems disturbing for a while, but you'll thank us in the end. You know, I kind of see Uranus a bit like that sometimes.
Yeah, and he's a maverick. You know, he is at a higher state of being. He's beyond Saturn. He's beyond the. We can't see Uranus with our naked eye. We can see Saturn. That's the boundary, but we can't see Uranus. So for me, Uranus is operating in kind of 4D, starting to just lose that sense of time and space, and its urge is always to get us to a higher state of being. And this dominant square, there are two dominant squares all this year. Pluto square Eris, I've talked about a great deal. Saturn square Uranus. And, you know, Saturn is the old structures, the old ways of being. And Uranus says, you know, it's already what we have outgrown.
Yeah.
This is where we need to shift to more freedom, to more individuality. Individuality often within collaboration, in a greater sense of individuality within community. And, it, you know, that has been crystal clear to see how it's playing out in the world. And that comes to its final third square on Christmas Eve. It's going to be a cracking Christmas. So, you know, that's going to be very interesting to see this crescendo of energy, because the vice is going to tighten at the 3D level in order to wake more people up. To me, that's its purpose.
Yeah.
It is, we're in a squeeze, and we, you know, more people wake up, and they will, and they are, because of these waves of energy that are coming in. The whole momentum of this situation shifts significantly and dramatically.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit like you said, that whole idea of squeezing something, the squeezing like peas in a pod. At what point does the tension of the casing of the pod burst and the peas burst out? I kind of think that we can use that analogy on ourselves. At what point do we surrender to the process that is going on for us and stop resisting the transformative energies and potential that is available to us, and say, you know what, rather than put all of this energy into trying to stop this thing which seems really, really uncomfortable and bad, let me try doing something completely different, which is go with it and just keep going with it and keep going with it. And I've found personally that when you do that, incredible things can happen. They might be somewhat traumatic at times or even destructive, but they definitely can be transformative. And I think for many of us on the spiritual path, this is what we came for. I've been waiting, I think, millennia for this moment in time and space to see the grand finale of this era. Is truly a blessed thing. And I think that we should all really be super grateful for the opportunity, but also really make the most of it. Rather than be some sort of victim or passenger in the process, let's be a leader in it. Let's be a leader in our own part of the story. If we're not leading our own story, then who is?
Absolutely. And it's very exciting. And I've connected with a group of people locally who just, again, it's been a frequency match, quite a significant group of people. And we're sort of talking together now. And it's, oh, you're an expert in that. Fantastic. You're an expert in that. Griffith, you're an expert in the law. Oh, amazing. You're an expert in this. And all of the, the wealth, the richness of talent and expertise amongst people you didn't even know existed,
right,
4 months ago, has been so exciting. And okay, let's do it a different way. What can we create? If we're not liking this very much, what can we create from the grassroots up? And it feels so inspiring. You get tingles down the spine in connecting to these people because it's at such a different pitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the positive upsurge from your experience with the builders. It's like how it can be different if you've changed the inner metronome to be more receptive. And even if you have a day with builders that that are perhaps not on it themselves, to be in a compassionate place and just reflect back, hey, you must be having a bad day, man. Maybe you burnt your toast this morning or got a flat tire, and hey, I just need to be in a place to hold you in your bad day, rather than absorbing it and then kind of amplifying it maybe and getting ratty or whatever. Which is easy sometimes with builders, right? And so how do we shift the frequency ourselves? We can be in a bad day too, but we always have the opportunity and the potential to take a choice and say, I can continue this, or I can say, hey, you know what, let me be the change here. And then, like you just said, instead of meeting people that are grumpy all the time, you meet amazing people who are going to perhaps click somehow into something that's happening around you. And I think that this is really the really exciting grassroots up aspect that is starting to manifest. But we have to look for it in the right place. If we're looking for it in, as somebody once said, the revolution will not be televised, and of course it's not going to be. There is no television in here. I think never a truer word said in these times. Like the real revolution happens inside where there are no TV cameras. So
I think that's beautifully said, Davyd. And 16 years ago, I wasn't evolved enough to think about compassion then, but I would be now. And that's a great reminder that, if I meet people who are angry, their mother might have died that day, or their wife just left, you just don't know the background to what's happening in their lives. And I think meeting people with compassion and love, then the judgment drops away, then the divisiveness drops away, because there's a whole backstory to their life too. And I think what helps us immensely, I always think of Chariklo's symbolism. Chariklo, this eternal state of being, I think of it as very Buddhist energy. Just by her silence, she could heal people by her state of being. This is what we're stepping into. In New Earth, we're going to have the ability, telepathy, you're doing that, some people already, to heal people simply by holding their energy. We're going to be able to be much more adept at this. All of the systems will change: education, law, politics, meds, finance, the whole thing. There probably won't be any finance. There'll be so much abundance we'll just be able to share. And that seems really kind of Disney and pie in the sky right now, but people are, I know people who are starting this, and they don't have any need to go outside to buy stuff because they're just growing food themselves. And what else do you need? You don't need stilettos and a ball gown anymore. It's just completely irrelevant to your life. So if you can share and grow food and have a community, the shift in values with Uranus in Taurus has been radical. And it's barely started. I mean, it's going to keep on trucking through Taurus till 2026. but that is the radical shift in values and the radical shift in finance and wealth and money. So people are going to see massive swings in their wealth. It's going to be up and down, or it may be wiped out entirely. And I can't advise on that because I'm not a financial advisor, and it's moving into such a new world. We can't even envisage how that's going to work. But then it may well be that eventually there's no need for money, because there's always abundance. So you can always have whatever you need.
Maybe it's also a re-evaluation of how we see abundance. Is an abundance really, I guess a lot of people is probably having tens of thousands or more in the bank and feeling like, oh, well, I've got a lot of money, I'm feeling abundant. But to my mind, abundance has got nothing to do with that at all. Abundance is, have you got everything in your life that you need? And there is a terrible tendency in the West to have a lot more stored away than we actually need, that sits there not doing a great deal. And as one of our teachers once said, that money is just an exchange. The problem is when it starts to get hoarded, when energy gets hoarded, it goes stagnant. So when energy is stored in your bank balance, it goes stagnant and kind of gets this energy sort of sludginess to it. Whereas if you're constantly moving it on, letting it pass through as energy, you can let it flow into abundance constantly all around you without having to hold on to it. And I think that this, again, is where we're moving to, and maybe our belief systems around what abundance actually is might change. And I totally concur with you. I think that the concept of currency or trade, I think, is going to change quite quickly and quite interestingly into something that's much more different, that's based on perhaps an exchange of ideas or exchange of skill sets, or one person loves growing plants but the next person loves cooking them, and so between them they produce the food for all the people that are fixing the houses in the community, and so everybody contributes their skills maybe, and so we don't actually need any money at all for any of that.
Yeah.
So I think these are all beautiful things that actually might seem like pie in the sky, but actually when you start to break them down and you live in a community potentially where that goes on, it's really not that pie in the sky at all. It's actually quite practical.
It is very literally down to earth in that sense. I mean, literally the earth and reconnecting to the earth. So yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting, not just Uranus and Taurus, which is going to cause create some wild swings in how the financial and economic system works, but on Christmas Day, we have Venus exactly conjunct Pluto, and I think it's starting to move retrograde that day too. So wow, watch the financial markets for that.
I mean, for anyone who's ever watched a long-running British soap opera, they always have the special Christmas episodes, right? I'm not going to name which soap opera it is, but there was a time when half of Britain used to tune into what was going to happen in a certain square in East London, with all of these kind of explosive kind of storylines that were completely impossible, really. But somehow we all got glued to it at various points, I guess. And it feels a bit like we're heading into one of those kind of soap opera Christmases, only with a lot more actual meat behind the bones, maybe. And between the winter solstice and Christmas Day, which, I mean, even from a pagan perspective, you think about the return of the sun dips for 4 days seemingly, or moves still behind the horizon from the winter solstice, and then re-emerges as the sun on Christmas Day. So I feel that that's a really, really potent period that happens and it also happens at summer solstice too, but it happened, and then it goes, I think, into St. John's feast. And so I think it's St. John's feast, it's a few days after, but the same process happens, but a lot less energy is put into it because we don't have Christmas Day per se after the 4 days. But these are really, really powerful moments where energetically stuff can kind of sit and be held and maybe even processed or integrated before the outwards manifestation that then leads you into the next process. And I love that period between Christmas Day and winter solstice, for that contemplative period where you can sit and feel into the energy of what's just happened on the winter solstice.
And of course, the ancient peoples did that. They knew this. That's why they always had ceremonies at that time. But solstice literally means stand still. The sun stands still at that time. And also, it'd be interesting to hear, how you're feeling about this as somebody who's so sensitive to energy. But we have had some massive waves of energy. I mean, the winter solstice last year, that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, massive. And they've just kept on coming, particularly around equinoxes and solstices. I think there's going to be another huge wave of energy, this Libra Equinox. But also the next winter solstice, I think, will be massive as well in terms of upgrades of energy, upgrades of consciousness in terms of the light that's coming in. Because it's ultimately the light is pouring in for all of us, but ultimately it's then how much light can each of us hold in our body on a continuous basis. And that's what's creating the shift for so many of us.
Well, I think again that's the Uranus and Taurus piece for this year, which is how do we, Taurus being the body, how do we cleanse the body, or through moments of realizations that, oh my god, I really need to let go of this. Am I prepared to go into the body and start releasing through a detox or a parasite cleanse or something like this? And then once that's happened, it creates this more space to receive more light. So typically we would advise our clients to take certain flower essences like St. John's wort, for example, that really allows more light to come into your field, really opens the crown chakra. And so I kind of feel that this is how we can start to work with the energies that are coming to the planet and really start to free up space within our own energy fields. And actually, what I've seen with myself is if we're doing that process, our chakras start to expand too. And so our energy field naturally starts to get bigger, which is great because it also means that, that we have more space for natural immunity to maybe unhelpful energies in the world. And the more that we can navigate through difficult spaces without any sense of fear or anxiety, because those lower frequencies are no longer present in our field, and like you say, no longer attracting them in. And so I kind of feel that this is the really, really, I wouldn't say easy, because detox isn't ever easy, but this is a quite simple methodology that can help us to form some sort of immunity to some of the more challenging things that we might be facing in our life right now.
Yeah, I really agree. I said in a recent video, it's like bubble wrap. There's some kind of protection if we can keep in that good place. And Davyd, for me, so often it's just sitting on the earth, sitting on the grass like a 3-year-old kid. I just got to have that simple connection to kind of warmth, decompress, particularly the head energy. And that can take me to just a state of bliss, just sitting on the earth, looking at the sky, looking at a tree. It's that, for me, it can be that simple. You don't have to do anything complex or sophisticated or go on a course or read a book. It's boom. It's just that fundamental connection to Mother Earth that can take me to a much better. And we know how healing that is with all the healing ions that we suck up through our blood and our whole physiology, and changes our physiology and biomarkers in minutes. We've got the evidence for that. So I think getting back to that connection with nature is such an important part of our evolution. Yes, it's very fine in terms of energy and energy state and frequency and consciousness, but it's very practical in terms of literally a connection with the earth.
Yeah, in fact, I'm just going to loop back to something to do with, you just reminded me on the full moon about this energy of I'm feeling confused, I don't know what to believe. I've noticed with a lot of people at the moment, there is a lot of fragmentation and distortion in the energy field, particularly around the third eye chakra and the crown chakra, which makes it actually quite difficult to think things through logically to a place of conclusion for yourself. And yeah, this is something that I think can potentially lead us into making decisions that maybe on reflection weren't necessarily the right ones for us. And so if we're getting a strong sense of I'm confused, I don't know what to believe, then I really, really advise taking some time to go out and sit under a tree, allow that energy to be given back to the earth and say, please, particularly clear my third eye chakra. Wormwood is a plant that we've talked about before. Wormwood is very good for clearing the third eye. And St. John's wort is a plant that's very good for the crown chakra. I've been working with these a lot over the last few months because of so much confusion coming here that I knew wasn't my own, coming externally, sometimes to do with life situations, but also when it comes, it makes it very difficult. It's almost psychically, it makes your head hurt to try and conceive of what's going on. So I think these are really important things that I would invite people to become aware of when they happen for you and you start to feel I'm confused or I don't know what to believe. Your higher self knows exactly what to believe and isn't confused at all. So some part of you is not feeling confused and doesn't know what to believe. So really spend the time under a tree and ask your higher self to step in and show you the truth of the situation. Take some wormwood essence. Please, wormwood, show me what is really going on here. Because if we're in a state of confusion, it's going to be difficult to really be in the flow. And so, but I see this a lot. I see that there is a lot of confusion, there is a lot of distortion, a lot of fragmentation in people's energy fields, but particularly on the upper chakras where we can really connect to truth. There's a lot of distortion in the body too, but I'm really seeing it a lot over the last 3 or 4 months in the upper chakras where we can receive those higher frequencies, those higher downloads, those higher realizations about ourselves and about the world we live in. So
yes, beautifully said, beautifully said. Because this full moon in Pisces with the moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces, I mean, that is all about developing our intuition, our psychic sensitivity. Right. It's about going within. And it is this feeling at the highest level of bliss, of a kind of almost a blending with nature, feeling at one with source, feeling at one with divine intelligence, feeling part of the whole ecosystem of Gaia,
Yes.
not dominating or exploiting, but just this incredible sense of oneness, which you can get from that Piscean energy.
And also, I've never come across a tree that carried any fear or anxiety either. You know, so when you sit under one of those powerful oak trees that, you know, is just a master of its own space, and I really recommend particularly oak trees. Yew trees are also really nice too, to help you kind of come into a place of oneness. But if you can just ask your higher self just to attune you even temporarily to the frequency of an oak tree and just sit there and just become a master of your own space and allow all of that clutter just to kind of sink away, it can be quite remarkable how quickly you can shift your frequencies. Or even if you're still feeling a little bit like, oh, I'm anxious about that, at least you have an idea of what's causing the anxiety. You know, I kind of think that there's that picture that you sometimes see of somebody who sees this scary like shadow of a monster on a wall, but actually it's just a cat who's been, you know, his shadow is being reflected by a torch. And, you know, it's like, it's only when you turn around and look at something properly, you can see that it's actually a cat shadow being reflected by a light. But to somebody looking from a different perspective, it looks like a monster. You know, so I kind of would really encourage people to look into what's making them feel anxious rather than getting overwhelmed by it and saying, I can't deal with this is too much. Sit in nature, sit under a tree, take some nice essences and just ask for help. It's amazing how much support we have right now from the higher realms. I don't think I've ever felt so supported in my life, so palpably experiencing particularly angelic energy. And that seems to be going on for a lot of people. You talked about the sort of cascade of energy that's sort of rolled over the planet. And what I found interesting is just how many people are really connecting to angelic energy at the moment, particularly archangelic energy, which is incredibly powerful, incredibly loving, but also very, very direct. I mean, it reminds me a little bit sometimes of the Artemisia plants, like wormwood and mugwort, that are very, very sort of, hey, you know, this is how it is. Sorry, it's not more palatable, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe it's better if you just deal with it and get on with things, rather than kind of looking away and saying, oh, I hope that's not what I think it is. You know, so I kind of find personally that it's much easier to move through things when you know what it is you're moving through. If you're not sure what it is, it's still a bit tricky to move through it. And I think this is a time for really stepping up and being brave and connecting into a bigger space, but also understanding that when you do, you've got this amazing support from these incredibly powerful, not just angelic beings, but many beneficial beings and extraterrestrials in the universe who are all here to help this process. I mean, there are so many beings that want us to ascend and evolve that we really have nothing to be afraid or anxious about. And if we are, then maybe we have to check in with why. Where's that coming from? Did I just watch the news for half an hour or something? Did I, you know, spend too long looking through my Apple News update or whatever it might be? You know, those things that perhaps seem like a good idea, but after 10 minutes we kind of feel a bit icky and a bit down, and suddenly we're going into a fear space about something. So like you, I definitely don't advise watching the news, but you know, those energies can come into our world through our friends and through our family. And I guess a lot of this is about how do we hold our space? How do we stay strong in our integrity and our own truth without offending people or getting up in people's faces or getting aggressive or hostile like some people seem to be at the moment, and just be going, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, but that's your opinion. I have mine, and we have to respect each other. And I think that that's also a large part of the shift is that humans are not very good at saying no and actually holding their own decisions. We kind of easily get pulled into somebody else's narrative, right? And so all of these things, I think the more that we can have this as a daily practice and observing us going, oh, like I feel like I did something I didn't really want to do there. Like, why? Oh, because I got guilt tripped, or because this person made me feel like this, or how can I let that in? Like the builder's energy again, right? You know, and just I kind of countenance the sort of being very, very present. You know, dandelion is a great plant for the present moment, but where am I? What am I doing right now? Who am I engaging with? What? How am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling anxious? All of these things. You know, and it becomes a practice to the point where, you know, you don't even know you're doing it anymore. But you are able to flow through life a little bit more easily, where everything is a little bit sort of held. And there isn't the chaos, there isn't the anxiety, there isn't the fear. There's just excitement, mostly, at the potentiality of the magic that's available to us right now. So, yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting because, you know, as I've understood from various very evolved people, that the Earth was offline for some time. It's now coming back online as a bigger part of the galaxy. So we are stepping into a whole new episode as galactic citizens. There's a way bigger picture to all of this. You know, our 3D life seems so tiny and contracted and squeezed right now, but there's so much support in the astrology for courage, for stepping out, for warrior energy, not in terms of battle and divisiveness, but in terms of, I know my center, I know my sovereignty, and I'm holding my ground. It's that sort of a feeling. And also with connections to nature, Janet Trelaw taught me a beautiful exercise, which I actually do every day with trees. She said, firstly, you've got to ask to approach a tree because trees are very polite. And then you sort of put your heart, actually, lean your heart on the tree and say, take from me what I do not need, and allow several minutes for that to happen. You'll probably feel some energy shifts, and then say, please give to me what I need. And then again, wait a few minutes and you should feel an energy shift, and then thank the tree and off you go. And I do that every day. And, you know, it sounds slightly sad, really, but you start to develop relationships with trees.
Well, I think it's beautiful.
You know, isn't that wonderful? They all have different heartbeats, as you know, different pulse. And, you know, that connection is so fundamental. I think trees are higher beings than us, but it's so fundamental. And it's terribly grounding in a time that can feel so wildly uncertain and crazy out there.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I would concur with that whole idea, you know, just to sit and be with a very realised being, particularly trees like oak and yew and hawthorn, these very old. Elder is a tree that I work with a lot, very wise being, you know, and it's not so far out anymore, you know. The ability to sit and talk to a tree is something that many people can do now, and you know, if we're expecting some kind of backwards and forwards conversation, we might be disappointed, but if we allow ourselves to sink into a deeper space and receive imagery or ideas, we can find that the language of trees and plants is different, but also really beautiful and magical. And they start to talk to us in a different way, sometimes through imageries or synchronicities. But we can't expect these wonderful things to happen if we don't go and spend time making friends out in the woods or with the plants. You know, it's not a God-given right that we're going to make friends with trees and plants. We have to put some energy into it in the same way we would with other humans. We can't just expect people to suddenly be our friend without there being some sort of preamble to that and some sort of continuous work. And I've seen over the years of working with plants and trees that the more you put in, the more you get back. The more, and particularly right now, I mean, as Zach's talked about with me when I had a session with him, he was talking about the work that we do with the essences and with plants in the quantum field. And he said, this is right at the cutting edge of the future of healthcare because it's in the quantum field. And he said, what's really exciting, because he was talking to my own plant spirit team whilst we were doing the channeling session. He said, they're telling me that they're super excited because people like you who are working the quantum field with plants are actually allowing the plant spirits themselves to evolve because they've never done some of this work before. Wow. And I was like, wow. And he particularly talked about wormwood a lot, actually, and said, you know, that wormwood is really a plant that's here for right now. And we shared that meme a little while back about from the Book of Revelations, that wormwood is actually mentioned in the Book of Revelations, which I think is interesting. But when you understand the energy of wormwood and how it works, I can understand why it would be a really important plant. And so I've chatted a lot to wormwood over the last 6 months, and wormwood is really, really happy to be out there in as many people as possible because she's very good at helping you to see, but also highly anti-parasitic. And so those parasitic energies that would deplete our own energy field are really not helpful right now. And if we can not only get rid of them, but also help to see them, then I believe that wormwood is a very kind of angelic being, really, that is here to help oversee the process of illumination. And you know, that whole 2020 vision that's now 2021 vision, I feel is a very wormwood process. You need to see what's going on so that you can step into who you are and why you're here. And yeah, I think that these energies are available to all of us, but we have to invite them into our life. We have to invite the higher beings in. They don't just turn up unlike some unrequested visitors from the energy realms. You have to invite the higher beings in. And so all of this requires a little bit of action to our imagination to manifest the magic, I think. And so I just want
beautiful. And I love that, Davyd. And you know, the medicine of the future, it already is, but the medicine of the future will be entirely frequency based.
Yes, I agree.
You know, it's all about frequency from this point on. That's one of the fundamental pillars of New Earth. All about energy and frequency, and everything, whether we still have money, but medicine in particular is all about frequency. And that's how you fix someone if they have some ailment. You just give them back their frequency or elevate the frequency. Right. And I used to do some very, very simple healing that was based around breath work. And we were always taught that we weren't healing anybody. We were helping through the breath work and raising our own consciousness to entrain, to automatically raise the consciousness of the so-called client or patient. And it's like jump leads. They then heal themselves. So we were just a vehicle. And I found that so exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all about frequency going forwards. Yeah. And wormwood is a brilliant brilliant thing to take every day. I take it every day, as you know. I take
Yeah.
I take your wormwood essence every day, as you know.
It's amazing how many people are taking wormwood right now. I think every one of our clients is on wormwood, but it's also amazing to see the life-changing effects that the plants had on people, and help them to see the truth of their own situations. And then very brave people have taken really strong actions, which I've been super inspired by, people that we've done healings on in other parts of the world who've suddenly seen the truth of what's going on for them in their life and gone, oh my God, I really need to make a huge transformational change here. And seeing people do it is super inspiring. It's just like, wow, like, you know, and then seeing how their life starts to change in a positive way thereafter because they made a difficult but brave decision. And wormwood and angelic energy can be a bit like this. It really asks us to step up. But when we do, the rewards that come can be truly something that we didn't expect, like a new earth, maybe, but in a way that's somehow coming from within rather than from without. So, wow, I mean, an hour has gone again so fast, Pam. I don't know, you know, it just seems to fly by. But as always, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're super busy right now, and you know, I value these conversations so much, and I hope our audience does too. We had a lot of really positive feedback from particularly the last one, and hopefully people will find this one interesting too. So for those people who maybe haven't come across Pam's work before, can you share your website address, Pam, and what else you can offer to people?
Yeah, it's just pamgregory.com, and my YouTube is Pam Gregory Astrology. And those two places you can get lots of info. And just to say, the website is being upgraded right now. It won't be finished till probably end of October. It's slow. If you're looking at it on a mobile, it won't be functioning very well. Please be patient. The website guys are on the case.
Right. Okay. So we should bear that in mind. And for myself, I'm your host, Davyd Farrell. I'm one of the curators on the Wisdom Hub TV, where you'll be able to see this episode along with Pam's YouTube channel. But also, if you're interested in the more quantum-based aspects of the plant healing work, that you can look into that on plantconsciousness.com, and you can find out how to perhaps book either a healing session, or you can get involved in the world of plant essences, which are super, super powerful. So yeah, I kind of invite everybody to step up and step out and enjoy what's coming, because you know, we're here to enjoy ourselves. We're here to, you know, embrace the new earth. We're not here to get into something that's gone before, you know. So really take this opportunity to step up into that new space. So I want to thank you again, Pam, for your time and your incredible wisdom and all of the things that you've helped with all of us over the last 18 months. I'm sure I'm not alone in thanking you for keeping some of us sane with your understanding of energy. So thank you so much. And thank you again to all of our audience for taking the time to tune in. Hope you find it useful, and hope to see you again in the future. Take care, everybody, and have fun.
Thank you, Davyd. Thank you. Bye. It's been a joy.
Bye-bye.